The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and we're going to be talking all things leasing and marketing today. And I have a very special guest with us. I have Brett Frank, who is the community director for CenterSpace out in Denver, Colorado. Brett, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I thought it would be fun today to talk all things Denver and what it's like to lease in Denver, because, you know, I've been in Denver's market. I have worked at a high rise in downtown Denver where I currently work. We have some out on the outskirts. So I thought it'd be fun just to kind of dive into what it means to be leasing in Denver today. What do you think?
Yeah, Denver's an interesting city to be leasing in right now. There's a lot of growth here, and we've got a lot of new units coming online that we're absorbing very quickly. So it's got its challenges, and it's a fun market to be in right now.
Yeah, Brett, how long have you been in the Denver market?
So I've been out here in Denver for coming up on maybe 4 years now.
4 years, okay.
Yeah.
And before that, you were in one of the Dakotas. Which Dakota was it?
Yeah, I was in South Central North Dakota.
Okay.
Little town that nobody knows.
Were you leasing there?
I started as an assistant manager out there. So yeah, I did a little bit of leasing up there. And it's the property management world and the leasing world from North Dakota to Denver is very different, vastly different.
Yeah. So what was your biggest shock when you got to Denver?
I think the biggest shock coming out to Denver was just like the different levels of product. I mean, like Class A in North Dakota is Class A there, but it's different. It translates different out here. The level of expectations from renters is completely different versus, North Dakota to Denver. That's probably the biggest shock to me.
Yeah. So I know you said there's lots of product coming online in Denver. Do you know roughly, I thought I read a statistic somewhere, but I don't want to quote. Do you know off the top of your head how many units you're getting about a year?
Yeah, it's about 10 to 12,000 units a year right now. I mean, it's a big stream of delivery. The big number everybody talks about, and over the last couple of years has been 40,000 in the pipeline. So there's, about 10,000 a year with still more coming. I mean, you drive through the city, there's cranes everywhere.
So let's talk about that. You're not the newest apartment community in your market, right?
Correct.
So
yeah, we're about 10 years old.
10 years old. How do you compete with all this new product coming online?
For sure. I think one of the things that's really important, everybody in Class A, they all have a pool, they all have a gym, they all have those amenities, but really it's what do you do different that sets yourself apart? So one of the things we really focus on here at CenterSpace and at our sites is the customer experience, so really trying to tailor the tour, the experience, everything to that individual instead of when they call in starting with, hey, what are you looking for? We really say, well, what's your biggest reason for moving? So instead of figuring out, are you looking for a 1 or 2, but what's driving you to move? Why is it important? That date, you want to move in on the 15th. Why is that date important? Are you starting a new job? Or, what's really the driving force behind your decision? So we can really make sure we find the best fit for them. And that's really how we've found to stay competitive is just offering that above and beyond level of service and trying to wow them with our personality.
Hey, I love that you called it customer experience because the first thing that I've learned this year is I've been shopping properties just with no like set number like last year. This has just been more of a leisure. I've noticed that like everyone talks about the customer experience, and what they really are trying to really talk about is the customer service. And I'm like, customer service is not customer experience. They're not one and the same. And I'm like, if you think you're offering a great customer experience, but yet your customer service isn't there, it's not happening. And I shot some properties in New Orleans where everything they were like, oh, one of the survey questions was, how would you rate your experience? And I was like, well, you should ask me how I would rate the service first
Yep.
because literally the leasing agent told me not to call her because she's too busy to answer the phone and just to email her.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah. I think one of the things that amazes me, we have all the technology everybody else does. We've got our AIs of the world and we've got our great CRMs, but every time the phone rings, I still see my leasing agents. They reach into their desk and they pull out an old school guest card. And that's where they write down all the importance, why is it important? What's important to you? What are you looking for? So they can put all that information into our CRM, but they really have all that at their fingertips. So when that prospect walks in, they still pull up that old paper guest card and they run through, everything that's important to them. And to the prospect, they feel like, wow, I never had anybody so prepared for a tour. You already had all my information. We didn't have to rehash everything we already talked about on the phone. You remembered it. You wrote it down, so that really carries over to them too.
Yeah. How do you get your leasing staff bought into that process, right? I feel like it's the talent shortage out there, right? And a lot of times post COVID, we've hired bodies. And so, I would say if you gave me a guest card, a paper guest card, I would be like, what am I to do with this? I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years now, and I'm not going to use it. So how do you make sure that your team is bought into that?
Yeah, I mean, it really started with the leasing agent herself, Stephanie. I'd love to give her a shout out. She's amazing. She really got the buy-in from everybody and some of our sister sites too. We do secret shops internally, and Stephanie consistently has over 100% on her shop reports, and with that comes bonuses from our company. So that's how she got that buy-in. Is she said, "Hey, look, guys, this is the tool that made me really successful in my phone shops and my secret shops, and this is how I'm getting these high scores. I'm just using this simple little tool." And so just really explaining the why behind it to the team, saying, hey, you use this, it will help you be successful, not only in your secret shops, but in your real shops with your actual prospects. So just explaining the why behind, I think, really gets the buy-in.
Yeah. Do you, as a manager, do you do accountability checks with them on using those guest cards? Like when you're listening to the phone calls, can you, like, as a manager, go and be like, oh, they didn't use the guest card as the guide?
You can definitely tell if you listen to a phone call. You can tell if they grab the phone and they had a bunch of other stuff going on. They're kind of out of their regular flow, and you can feel the call feels a little bit awkward. So you can definitely tell, and really, we dive into some of that stuff if we track conversion rates really, really closely in some of those things. So if we see some of those alarm bells going off, that's when we start to dig in a little bit and see, well, why are we not hitting?
Yeah. So besides all the new construction going on and you being, a decade old now, which is crazy because, I'm not much older than that myself. Um, what other challenges are facing the Denver market right now that you're up against?
Yeah, I really think the biggest one is that new supply. We do battle a little bit of misinformation in our market too. There's been a lot of regulatory changes in Colorado, so sometimes you'll get renters that are just they're misinformed. So we got to do a little bit of resident education, especially when it comes to things around like the portable screening reports. Some people have interpreted it as you can't charge me an application fee, and that's not true. So just battling some of that stuff has been a challenge, I think. But as long as your teams are well prepared, it shouldn't be an issue.
How do you, you know, battle that kind of challenge, right? Of the misinformation from the prospect, who for many years, right, in customer service, we've always said the customer's always right, no matter
Yeah.
what. When the customer's wrong, refer to number one, right? The customer's always right. So, how do you provide a response that kind of says you're not right, but in a
Yeah.
nice way to enhance the customer experience?
Yeah, so we really strive for transparency. So the team really takes the time to explain to them and say, well, you are right. If you don't want to pay the application fee, here's the process. So we don't say you're wrong, that's not true. We give them the process to, if you want to go that route, here's how you do it. This is what I need from you, and kind of walk them through step by step what it would take for them to not be charged the application fee. So just really honesty and transparency helps kind of bridge the gap.
Yeah. What about so besides like I mean Denver is a weird market in itself, right? So you can't really charge an admin fee until they move in, and you it's a low cost to like even apply for apartments in most of Denver because of those laws. So
Yeah.
how do you ensure that when someone's applying that they're actually going to move in? Because there's nothing worse than being a leasing agent, right? And then all of a sudden you've got all these applications because it's $25 to apply. That's all that I have to pay to hold this apartment. So I'm going to apply to 4 different apartments. What's $100 if I really want to move to see where I get where I can apply accepted at, and then I can move into the 4 that I was chosen from.
Yeah, so I think with us, we tie their security deposit to it. So as soon as your application, as soon as your screening comes back approved, we're automatically capturing that deposit that is tied to your payment method for your application. So, we're upfront, we're transparent about that, letting them know that that's what's going to take that unit off the market, is that security deposit. That's going to get you solidified. So when people are aware that once they're approved, their security deposit is going to be captured, that really, they've got some skin in the game with it, if you will.
Yeah, I'd love that. I mean, I think you see it more and more now, especially as more and more local places are kind of going away from the admin fee at time of application. Or, when I started in the industry, we didn't call it an admin fee. We called it a holding deposit
Yep.
a long time ago, so like kind of like tying that into there as well. How do you keep up with all of the change? I feel like I read something every day about a change in the Colorado market, right? Like I have some friends who have properties in Colorado Springs, and they're like, we can't charge this for pets, and it can only be 1 pet fee or one
Yep.
pet rent per month. If you allow 3, well, it's $30 for all 3, and that's it. So how do you kind of like keep up and ensure that the information is being passed down?
Yeah. I think our local affiliate at the Apartment Association of Metro Denver does a really, really good job with educating the members about law changes and stuff like that. So I think it's really important, just, those team huddles. I get that information from, whether it be, the attorneys we use, whether it be from our Blue Moon lease or from the local affiliate, and then holding a team huddle and really explaining that to the team so the team understands where we're at, what we're allowed to do, what are the regulations. So then they have the tools to pass that along to the residents or to the prospects too.
Yeah, I just think it's so crazy, like how things evolve so rapidly, right? So what part of Denver are you in?
Right downtown, we are. I mean, I can see Coors Field when I look out my front office. So I mean, we're right downtown in the heart of it.
And so I used to have a building in downtown Denver that we it was a high rise, and so there was a lot of homeless, and there was a lot of don't want to say crime, but almost crime, like in that area. So how
Yeah.
do you help your leasing staff kind of handle that sort of objection?
For sure. The team always lets residents know or prospects know and say crime doesn't discriminate. Crime doesn't have a zip code. The challenges of the city are going to be the challenges no matter what neighborhood you go into. But we really reassure them, we're a fully gated property. We have on-site security, so we go through some of the things that we do to mitigate some of that stuff and let them know that you are going to be safe and secure here. We tell them about where our cameras are and all those things that we do. And that kind of helps, put people's concerns at ease. But again, it just goes back to being honest and transparent with them, and don't tell them, hey, there's no crime. That's not a problem. Because it is a problem in the city, and it's a problem in any downtown market. So I think just being transparent, saying, yeah, sometimes there can be some homeless people in the neighborhood and things, but this is what we do about it. This is how we handle it. so they know that they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah, and I think like I feel like that's an expectation no matter if you want to live downtown, you kind of go in knowing that, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a downtown market, it's this or it's that. So it shouldn't be a shock. But I was kind of we had a concierge, a 24-hour concierge, we had valet parking, all these things. And still like that was the first question out of people's mouth when I was there. And I was just like, you're in downtown. Like it's kind of almost like that expectation, and we do everything that we can to provide a quality home, but I can't guarantee that the person that's homeless isn't going to be sleeping on the corner. We're going to do everything we can to like get them, but they also have protection laws just like you do in your apartment. They have things, so there's not a lot that I can do with that.
Yes, and we be transparent with them too, and we let them know, if it's off of our property, that our hands are really limited in what we can do. But then we provide them resources to the city. We give them the city's number to call, where to report, stuff like that too, and let them know. Yep, if you go ahead and file a report, we'll file one too, and hopefully we can get some response from the city in that regard too. But yeah, I think it just being open and honest with them and making sure expectations are met, and letting them know we're going to do everything within our power.
Right. And then making sure that you deliver on those expectations. Because I feel like a lot of times we overpromise and underdeliver.
For sure.
So the other thing I really like, I kind of noticed when I was in Denver and when I started in the industry, I started in California. So I got to go help a property in San Marcos. When I got to San Marcos, they started talking about locators.
Yeah.
And that's a unique, like that was definitely like a Texas, mainly where I saw it at. But then I got to Denver and I noticed like there were locators everywhere. So
yeah,
let's back up and kind of, why don't you explain what a locator is?
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of the Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Partnering with Chadwell Supply helps communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. Learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Yeah. So I guess the easiest way to explain a locator, it's like a broker. They have their advertisements on social media and websites like that. But I, as a new renter to the city or just a renter in general, could reach out to one of these firms and say, "Hey, help me find an apartment." And you'll get paired with a locator. They'll run through your lists, your wants, everything, and they'll say, "Okay, I'm going to set up some tours for us." And the locator will then contact properties that kind of meet their criteria, and then take them around to those various sites, tour them. If that lease converts, usually those buildings will pay that locator some sort of referral fee or a finder's fee or something along those lines. So the service is free to the renter, and then the locator gets paid out from the business.
Yeah. So, if you're listening, you might not have locators in your market, but a lot of times real estate agents will do this on the side as well, or relocation companies that are in there. So let's talk about it from a community standpoint. What advice do you give, to new leasing agents, or do you maybe to a new manager that's starting with your company when it comes to working with the locators?
Yeah, I think one, you got to make sure whatever locators are coming onto your site, they really know your site. So oftentimes they'll want to come in and they'll want to go on like a self-guided tour. I would caution against that. You don't want the locator to give misinformation, to the prospect, because if that prospect moves in and they think they're getting a unit with brown cabinets and turns out the unit that they applied for actually has white cabinets, that's the locator's not going to fix that. That's on you. They've signed a lease with you. That's your problem to deal with now. So I think really making sure whatever firms you're using and setting up partnerships with, that you've really spent some time and educated their locators on your product so they're aware of everything. And really just, they are a tool. They can be helpful. historically, if I've had a unit that's a stale unit that we're not getting traction on, we can't move, you can utilize your partnerships and reach out to them and say, hey, I really need help moving this unit. I'll pay an extra 10%, 25% commission if you can help us move this thing, in the next 2 weeks. And they often will deliver on that. So definitely utilize them, if they can be very helpful, but make sure that they're educated on your product first.
Yeah, I ran into a problem, especially like in Austin, is like you want to make sure that you're setting the expectation with them, right? Because we ran into a problem where the locator would book all the appointments and then just send the prospect without the locator ever coming. And
Absolutely.
they would get buried into our emails. And so we would like kind of this prospect would show up and like, I have an appointment, and it's like nowhere on our calendar. And then like you search your property and they're like, oh, they emailed it in 10 minutes ago. Right.
Yeah.
So like I always like to say, set that expectation. Like to me, I think if a locator is getting paid to send people, they should at least escort them to the property and kind of, because in my eyes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're kind of an extension of you as well.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things we did that was successful a couple years ago at a different property, we were using a lot of locators. They were a big source of traffic for us, but we were having instances of that, locator sending a referral over but not accompanying it, stuff like that. So we just hosted a happy hour. We invited all the locating firms that we did business with, invited them to bring their agents in, and had a happy hour with them so they could meet everybody on the staff. And then we took them around and did a tour. My leasing staff did, and explained everything, the things we call out, our policies, our SOPs, and really set those expectations and just gave them some education that really we saw improvements after that too. So if somebody out there is listening and they've heard about locators or they're new in their market, definitely explore them, but definitely take the time to set expectations with them too. That's a great point.
How do you maintain that relationship, right? Because I feel like a lot of times it becomes very one-sided almost, right? We only call the locator when we need something, which is not ideal, right? So how do you ensure that you make sure that it's beneficial to both sides?
Yeah. So with our locating partners, we have a year-round, commitment. Any lease they bring us, we have set payouts for them, so that way they're incentivized to work with us year-round. If we ever get into a situation where we need, a specific unit or something, that's when we'll tag on an extra commission kicker to really incentivize them to move that. But I think just keeping those relationships, fresh. When they send you an invoice, make sure you pay them in a timely manner. They're a business just like we are. We need to get rent paid so we can pay our bills. They need to get their commissions paid so they can pay their bills too. So just take care of them and they'll take care of you.
Yeah, I like to think of it too. Like the property I had some penthouse units that I worked for in Denver, and we did a big open house, like for just like the locators, like was targeted. We allowed anyone, we did e-blast, but we really wanted to target to locators that could come see these penthouses that had been sitting vacant for a very long time. And it was during Easter, so I was in a full bunny Easter outfit and like hopping around the property in this thing. But I got to like talking, and I realized that we don't do a great job. Like we do all these resident events for people, and but yet these locators are kind of like we don't really do anything for them. So I was like
Yeah.
telling my staff, I was like, why don't you do like a quarterly lunch with the locators and you take them lunch?
Yeah.
They're it's outreach marketing.
Yeah. We've done one of the locating firms here in Denver, Denver Apartment Finders. We've partnered with them on charitable things. They'll come around and drop off boxes for coat drives and things like that. So some of those other things too. I mean, they want to do good just as much as we want to do. So you can find opportunities to partner with them, and I think taking them out to lunch is it's a great one too.
Yeah, I just think that it needs to be on both sides because you just said there's all these new apartments, 40,000 in the pipeline, right? It becomes so hard. And just like leasing professionals, uh, locators are money driven as well because that's how
Yeah.
they make their money. So if you're not paying their invoices on time, they're going to refer you to someone else. So it can be, detrimental to your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, as a community manager, how do you ensure that your corporate office is kind of bought into the locator philosophy because, it is an expense. And
Yeah.
someone who's never been to your market or they're reading your financials from, 5 states away, they say, well, we don't need these locators. We will
Yeah.
just increase our apartments.com.
Yeah. I think it's really important to show the metrics, right? To really be able to say confidently, well, this is how many leases this month we netted from that, and that's traffic we probably wouldn't have seen without those locators, because oftentimes these people, they're using a locator because they don't want to browse apartments.com. They don't want to sift through 30,000 potential listings to narrow it down. They'd rather have somebody do the legwork for them. So that would be my argument, is that traffic wasn't going to be on apartments.com. They weren't going to be on Zillow. They weren't going to be on those sites to begin with. They were just going to talk to the locator. So if you really have good metrics to be able to show this is how many leases converted from this source of traffic, I think that helps ease the conversation and justify the expense.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's just so important for people to really understand, like, in some markets, you have to work with the locators. Like,
Yeah.
Denver is one of those markets where if you're in a downtown Denver environment, and I don't even think that people don't want to do the legwork. I think it comes down to I want someone else's opinion that I can trust that is
Yeah,
doing it day in and day out. And I think that's why maintaining that relationship with these locators is so important, right? Because if there's no relationship and they don't like you or, you treat them badly, I've seen that happen. They're
yeah,
not bringing people to your name because at the end of the day, they're in the referral business as well, just like we
yeah,
are. So, like, if they set you up somewhere and it's a negative experience, that's a reflection of them.
for sure. Absolutely. And a lot of these locators have, I mean, I was scrolling Instagram the other day and I saw an Instagram reel from a locator of one of our sister properties, and it's like, well, they're doing outreach marketing for us. That was a great Instagram reel video that would have taken our team time to produce and edit and get out there on social media. They just did all that for us, so they can really be beneficial. But to your point, you got to take care of them. You don't want to burn bridges.
So you talked a little bit ago about expectation. So, how do you like kind of bridge that expectation, right? Because I know a lot of people do let the locators go on a self-guided tour, or
Yeah.
a lot of people will use it if they're moving from outside of the area and they can't physically come see it. They will, do the virtual tour with them for you. So how do you ensure that you're managing the expectations of the prospect? Because sometimes you're not the one talking to the prospect.
Yeah, that's why my team really likes to be present with it. If the locator is going to do a virtual tour, one of my leasing staff will accompany them. So then, if there is some misinformation, if they misquote a pet fee or something along that line, my team is there and can on the spot be like, "Oh, actually, so sorry, I'm just going to step in here." And they can make sure that they're getting accurate information. We require all of our locators to be accompanied tours. Even if they're doing a virtual tour, we ask that, they still come on site. We're able to be there with them. So we can just make sure that there's a really smooth handoff. And I think the locators appreciate that too. I mean, if they're touring 15 assets that day and everybody has different parking pot prices and pet policies and all the things, that's a lot of information for them to try and memorize. So if we can make their job easier, that, it's mutually beneficial at that point.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than having someone show up on move-in day that, you don't have the relationship with this person and like you
Yeah.
become this middle person of it. And like I've had instances where the locator stopped doing business with properties because, of how things were handled. I'm like, well, you did everything self-guided.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time I'm talking to this person. So it was kind of an error on both parties, right? Ours and them as well. So I'm glad to see that we're not the only ones in doing that. Do you have any other advice when working with locators or, agents outside of your company?
No, I think we covered it really well, but the biggest thing is just make sure you set those expectations before they even bring a client in front of you, so you can have that dialogue with them when there's not a client with them, so they're very clear on what you expect of the locator, and how the process is going to work start to finish, so that it doesn't leave anything up for interpretation, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And I always say, make sure you make detailed notes when you're dealing with like people so that you can exchange it, right? So I always tell the locator, I'm going to send you the notes I had. If you can send me the notes you have, and then we can like pair this together. And I think the other thing, like the last thing I always tell people, like these locators should be, if a pricing drops, you have a new special, a new incentive, like these are the first people that you want to get it out in front of, because they're
Absolutely.
working with so many different people that it makes it the legwork off you and
Yep.
onto them, because they're going to be like, oh, or you're offering a 25% and more incentive on top of our base fee. So now it's 125% of the first month's rent to have someone move in there. They're going to work 10 times harder for
Oh
you
yeah.
than you having to call every single person in your Rolodex.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they can get traffic. I mean, if your traffic is dead, they can really create some traffic for you if you're in a bind. So, I know like lease ups use them really, really heavy. So for a property like us, we're battling some of those lease ups indirectly with the locator. So, but if that locator knows a client that they're going to send to us is going to be taken care of, that client is going to give us a great review. They're going to give that locator a great review. That's mutually beneficial for everybody.
Yeah. Well, Brett, I want to thank you so much for joining Rooms with Ronald today and getting to talk locators. I don't get to talk locators with a lot of people because a lot of people don't know what they are. But if listeners want to reach out to you, where do they find you at?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Brett Frank on LinkedIn. Also, you can drop me an email at any time. My email is just bfrank@centerspacehomes.com. Happy to connect, happy to offer any guidance or just connect, reach out.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining. I hope the listeners found this inspirational about the Denver market. I love learning about new markets and seeing what's going on. And it's always refreshing to hear someone's point of view from a little bit of an older asset versus the new shiny toy. So it sounds like you are killing it out there as well. And then all things locators. So, guys, until next time, you've been listening to Rooms with Ronald, a podcast about leasing and marketing. Happy leasing, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope I left you with some fresh ideas or a new perspective. Leasing and marketing are evolving rapidly, and Rooms with Ronald is committed to offering a place to hear about those changes. We also celebrate and acknowledge the fundamentals of exceptional service that will never go out of style. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other exceptional industry podcasts, call pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.